Hello, everyone. Welcome to the last transmission. Hello, Chris. How are you doing?
Hi, Paul. How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, well, not too bad. Been a great day. I've enjoyed it today. No complaints. And let's hope the next few hours are just as good. Great guest, really, tonight. A guy who's going to share some first-hand accounts of his own and a few experiences that he's heard from other people. So I'm looking forward to that. And how's your day been?
Yeah, good. I'm feeling better. Sorry, guys, everyone watching that I've missed last week. Just feeling a bit. Had a bit of flu or something, but I don't get ill very often. But when I do, it's took its toll on me. This one, I'm not 100% yet, but yeah, I'm feeling better. So glad to be back, and glad we've got Stan on tonight. Because I think Stan's a friend of Chris Meek as well, and we're friends with Chris up Scotland, and we don't get a lot of information from up Scotland, and it sounds like there's loads going on up there. So it's brilliant to have Stan and his partner researching up there along with Chris. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be interesting. And remember, as always, people, because we're heading towards 100 people in chat, we want some questions for Stan and questions for Chris and myself. Let's mix it up a bit tonight. We plan to have Stan on for an hour, but he will stay on the full 2 hours if we've got enough content to go around. So we really want to make the best of it, because I love it when we've got everyday people. Stan don't profess to be anything but just a normal guy who's had some very unusual experiences, and that's what it's all about, really, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And most of us are. I mean, obviously, you've got your own personal experiences, which pushed you into research. The filmmaking kind of pushed me into the research. So, yeah, I think more and more people are getting heavily into this subject now. Certainly the public, the wider public, are more accepting of it, which can only be good, because
people
it sounds like there's more. Yeah, they're waking up for sure and becoming less. I suppose, they're less inclined now to keep these things to themselves and, share it with like-minded people, which benefits everybody. And hopefully we can learn a lot from these old cases and new cases every day.
New and old. I think the old ones, the historic ones, if they've never been spoken about much, I think there's still a lot of mileage in them. And, but everybody dwells on about disclosure and are we going to have disclosure and is it ever going to happen? And do you know something? I think that probably these unknown others, the call them aliens, I think that they're as in touch with Joe Public as they are with the elite powers of the world and the military. And that could be one of the reasons we've never had disclosure of, and decade after decade people talk about it, but we never seem to edge any closer. And the actual powers that be might be absolutely terrified, because let's face it, these intelligences that they're piloting, if you want, the intelligence behind the UAP stroke UFO, they're more interested in contacting Joe Public, the average man, as they are the military and other people. I think so anyway. And if that's the case, then I could imagine that the powers that be would be absolutely terrified, because from what I can see, the amount of people that are getting contact and have had contact throughout the years, most of the people have just been average, everyday people. Nothing special, just normal like you and me, and they're getting contact. So that could be one of the reasons we don't get disclosure, because they're absolutely terrified, because they know, the powers that be, that it's already occurring, but it's occurring with the public.
Yeah, it's complex. Yeah, it's a really complex area. Even though I've been doing editing for a company that we deal with a lot of the ufologists and people in this arena. I've realized over the years it is very complex. There's a lot of this multifaceted, multi-layered, probably multi-dimensional. There's a lot going on. And, before I used to think it was pretty cut and dried, simple. You've got this secret, you've got this government that's keeping secrets from the public, and it's not that at all, is it? This goes much deeper than that.
Well, when you think about it, Chris, if some intelligence outside of the human, us as a species, is observing us, they're not going to impart great knowledge to some military power, because they know what end result's going to be. That's going to get used to crush and destroy some other nation, some other country. So why are they going to do that? And and the amount of people that get contact and get, I mean, Linny said good point there, but it's true. Look, you've only got to look at programs on the subject, podcasts all over the internet about the subject and about people who go out to these locations. They get interaction, they get contact. So I know that's not disclosure, but I think that probably some of these unknown others, these other intelligences, don't look upon the military state, the governments, the powers of the world any more favourable than average Joe. And that's doing us a disservice when I say it like that, normal, everyday people, because they're in contact with the unknown others. But,
yeah, and it begs the question, and we'll ask Stan about this when he comes on shortly. It begs the question whether disclosure will include things like cryptids, ghosts, the ghost phenomena, because it's all paranormal, it's all supernatural, it all comes under that umbrella, and it all does seem to be connected. So I wonder if they'll even ever touch on that.
Well, they'll probably touch on what they want out of it. That's why we're looking at the UAP. We're looking at things that can outsmart and outmaneuver our military. God, we need his hands on that. We need to be able to have that technology so that we can just shove a great Monty Python foot on some other country. That's my crude analogy there. And some people won't even know what I'm on about there. But you know what I mean? It's just the way of things. We're a warring nation. We're a warring race. I don't think any intelligence out there or that's interacting with us is going to impart great knowledge and sophisticated equipment to the human race.
Yeah, you make some good points, mate. So that's one of them subjects that we can.
Yeah, let's just have a look who's in chat, shall we? And we've got Lean, Rivington Pike, Jojo, Mike Disabled Welshman, Bob Brown. Good to see you, Bob. He's about 50 yards away from me, actually, Bob. Mark Anderson, good to see you, Mark. Drew Hollins, Liam, Linny's in. So Mrs. Linny's probably in. Mia Girl, Pete will be watching from sidelines. Steve Collins, David Hunt. And that's only the names I can see, to be honest with you. I don't know whether you can see more names there, but Dragonborn, thanks for the support, guys.
Yeah, thanks everybody for watching. So without further ado, let's bring on Stan.
Yep, absolutely.
How are you?
How are you?
We're good. We're good, and it's good to see you, my friend. And I think Stan would be the first person to say that he doesn't consider himself a researcher, but you are an experiencer with an avid interest in the subject of unexplained phenomena. So it's a brilliant place to start, Stan, isn't it? So take us back. Let's just, are there any experiences in earlier life?
My first experience that I could really say that I had was maybe about 2 nights after my gran died, when mum and dad was downstairs. My gran lived with us. Brother's sleeping in his room. I was in my room, and it sounded like a ball getting bounced down the stairs, like how a kid would throw a ball up the stairs and the ball would hit off the steps, and that went on 5-10 minutes. I wasn't getting up to check to see who it was because I was terrified. I was about 12, 13 at the time. But what kind of struck me was years after that, my mum had, just in general kind of conversation, had said that, I remember a couple of weeks before your gran died, she said there was a dark figure at the top of the stairs, and she was convinced it was your granddad waiting for her. And I'm like, cheers, Mum. I'm just going to my bed. That's exactly what I need to hear. But that was probably about my first personal experience. Before that, I was always interested in the Arthur C. Clarke programs that used to come on. Hammer horror stuff when my gran used to sit and watch the Frankenstein films and Dracula and Werewolf and that kind of thing. And then the unexplained magazines, spontaneous human combustion, all that kind of stuff. So really interested in that kind of thing. And then December 1986.
Yeah.
That was a full-on, experience.
A full-on experience.
Yeah.
Just before we get to that experience, because I kind of just threw you straight in there, Stan, and said, come on, tell us about this. What about Stan the man? What do you do outside of this? Just give us a brief outline of that, and what time you have as a I know you don't
Okay.
label yourself as a researcher, but somebody who gets involved in the subject.
Yeah. Well, it's just me. There's my partner, Jo. She's involved as well. We try and get out in Royal Deeside and round about the Aberdeenshire kind of roads out to the Cairngorms as much as we can. We kind of maybe on an average night when we go out, we're covering maybe about 100 to 150 miles.
Really?
Wow.
And stop them at various locations, pulling over. Jo's a brave one. She'll get out, rummage about, take photos and that. I'm sitting with my foot on the pedal, ready to go. And we'll come to that later on when we talk about Royal Deeside.
Right.
But yeah, that my other hobby, my main hobby is well, I say my main hobby. I've been mostly doing this since lockdown. Is vintage scooters. So, ride the scooter everywhere, camp up, doing here, there, meet mates all over the UK, get drunk, then drive back home again.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. Lynn is in chat and Lynn is in Bridlington. So, Ian, this fella comes to Bridlington on scooter rallies. So we'll have to meet him for a beer. So,
yeah. And that, and then family and work, obviously. Yeah, I work 5 days a week. I'm quite lucky to have a Monday to Friday job, which allows me to, just have these evenings. And Jo's got health issues, so it's sometimes it's not easy to get out, but we get out when we can. And we've had some really, really interesting experiences over the last, maybe say 4 years for lockdown.
This is out on your nightly runs that you have experiences.
And camping as well. We go wild camping now and again, and some of the stuff we've seen is really like eye-opening.
Go on then, because we know we're going to do 1986, but just give us, if you want to, just give us a breakdown of something that's been of interest whilst camping.
Right, wild camping. It was before Jo had ever seen what I call slow movers. It's when you're kind of just sitting in your camping chair and you're just looking up at the clear sky. And then you just start to see things moving about and you're like, okay, check flight radar, check the satellite apps. No, there's nothing going past just now. And then you see it maybe doing a strange maneuver. The first time that Jo saw that was we were up at New Aberdour Beach, which is up near Fraserburgh. It's right on the coast of the Cromarty Firth in the North Sea. And that was pretty spectacular. There was one night we saw quite a few things. And similar to your experience at Bempton, we had like a nanosecond like daylight.
Wow.
And we looked at each other and we're like, I'm getting goosebumps even just talking about this. And we looked at each other and we're like, did you see that? Yeah. But the strange thing was in the morning, there's quite a few folk go up there camping. There was this kind of big dome tent. And in the morning when I was kind of out making breakfast and getting the kettle on, these guys were taking this tent down. And there was a telescope in the tent.
Ah, right. You never asked.
And it was like, wow. And here that it was a black Land Rover, Range Rover, kind of old style Land Rover, jet black. And they were piling everything into the back of that. And this big telescope was black as well. And it was just like, wow. And it wasn't just like one of these telescopes, I would say, an amateur uses or whatever. I've been up to the observatory in Dundee with Mark Anderson and that. We've been there with Mark. And this was kind of like the thing that they use. And it's, I wouldn't even say it's maybe 4 or 5 foot long on a tripod, but quite a hefty looking bit of equipment. And I was like, this is strange. This happening last night through the night, 2, 3 in the morning, and then these guys are packing this stuff up. And the thing never even protruded the tent. You know, you couldn't see it. It wasn't until they were taking the tent down, and the tent was in was built in triangular sections. It was orange, and they were taking all these orange bits out, and here's this thing, and they're lobbing it in the back of the Land Rover, and off they went. you know, interesting stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that flash of light, do you think was it that fast then, Stan? If your partner had have blinked, she'd have missed it.
You'd have missed it.
Yeah.
I would have missed it if I had blinked. It was just like somebody switching a light on and off.
Yes, just like lighting the world up for a blink.
It was like daylight for a nanosecond. It was just like, whoa, what was that? You know, really strange.
Matrix. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's happening up there.
Yeah,
and some of it we're not even noticing. We're only picking it up when we're looking at the footage.
My personal view is it's the East Coast, right up the length of the country. It's the East Coast. That's just my personal view. I mean, I know there's lights and whatever gets seen across the West. I've seen that bit. The stuff where like what you see at Bempton, what we've seen up at New Aberdour, it's it's the East Coast. That's where it's at.
Yeah, it's interesting, Chris, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I've said that to you about that coastline. There is, I agree, Stan. I think there's something very peculiar about it. And Stan, what is there a lot of military bases up there as well, or not?
I mean, when I lived in Fife before I moved up to Aberdeen 30 years ago, I worked on the bin lorries with the council, and on my route was Lukers Air Base, and I lived about maybe 15 miles for Lukers, and again it all ties in with strange stuff like Charmaine's sighting and the guy that saw the Bigfoot crossing the road, where he said that happened was on the A92, and it was on at 100 yards, 200 yards for the fuel dump for RAF Lookers. And then the guy travelling to work offshore, Chris, Paul, when you were saying the guy that contacted you, when he saw the deer startled by this box, kind of spinning in the field, that's only a matter of 100 yards for there as well.
It's so strange, isn't it? And the cube really interests me, but obviously let's concentrate on this. The Bigfoot story then, crossing the road. Is there any more to that one?
Is that the Silverman sighting, that one?
No, I don't think so.
No, that was somewhere else. This was the guy who was in the paper. He was described as what do they call him when they work for the government? Just sort of like he was obviously, for what I gather, he was employed as a civilian at RAF Lookers, I think, or the fuel dump, which is just
a civil servant kind of thing.
Civil servant, yeah. He worked for the civil service, and he said that he had finished work. It was early hours in the morning, and obviously heading to either wards, the Dundee area, the Tay Bridge. And this thing come crashing through the trees, across the road, within a couple of steps, and up the other verge. So, I mean, that's interesting. A couple of miles away, maybe 20 miles away, the village of Kenaway, outside there, 1970. Courting couple up Porter's Brae, which is quite a kind of like a lover's lane kind of spot. And heard a noise outside, and here's this 7-foot hairy thing at the window of the car. They just started the car and off they go, which that leads on that area to the area that Mark Anderson is really interested in, is the Star Moss area. And we'll go into that when because I've got a friend who lives in that area. Mark's interviewed him. He's told me about his experiences. He's near long just built a house in that area, and it's been, as far as I could remember back to being a kid and a teenager, that area was rumoured, you didn't go up there because there's strange things happen up there at night, so lots of stuff happening. Lots of stuff.
Is it forested up there, Stan?
There's some, I wouldn't say it's heavy forest. There's tree lines, there's woods, what we would call them. I wouldn't say it's dense forest, but it's woods. And I mean, back in the 80s, there was rumours, there's folk do devil worshipping up in the woods and all that kind of thing. You've got to stay away from it. And I mean, I remember travelling back and forward. One of the places I worked, which was a veg park house, and on the other side of the hill, and some of the locals for that area, which was King's Kettle, Kettle's Bridge, which is famous for the kids program, The Singing Kettle. That's where they're from. Loads of kind of local kind of folklore up there, and we were up there maybe late last year. We were visiting my parents, and we took my brother, and we said, come for a spooky drive with us. We'll go up through the Cults Road and Burn Turk. And when we got home, he phoned me the next day and he said, "That's weird." He says, "I've had some weird dreams." He says, I had a dream that I was getting kind of, the car got stopped and I felt hands coming in and try to take me at the car.
Really?
Which that didn't happen.
No.
Because we always make a note of, we left at this time and we got back home at this time.
So there's no instances of missing time then in any.
Only one time that we had missing time was when we went out to Royal Deeside.
Yeah, well, I've just wrote. I know that you're doing 86. I've just wrote Royal Deeside down. I've wrote down Star Moss area. Just little things I want to touch on. But Chris has probably may have something to ask, but if not, we'll just take your lead, Stan. Where do you want to go?
I'll go to December 1986.
Okay.
My first kind of works night out Christmas party was at the Dunnycare Hotel in Kirkcaldy. I wasn't drinking. I was only 16. We weren't allowed to. Our boss wouldn't have been happy. Kind of left there at about midnight and kind of was trying to get a taxi home. I only had a couple of quid on me. Taxi could only take me 2.5 miles. I got dropped off at about maybe say 1:30 at the beginning of the A915, which is known as locally as the Stony Stone in Scots, but Standing Stone Road.
Standing Stone Road, okay.
Yeah, got dropped off at there's a caravan park there. So starts a long walk home, clear night, freezing cold because it's December. Nae got the right kind of attire on for walking that kind of miles. And I'm maybe about, I'd say 2.5 miles, 2 mile into the walk, and there's a farmhouse on the left hand side, and one of the guys that I'd done my YTS with, that was his dad's farm, and that is the farm that's got the field with the Standing Stone in it. Right. So I'm actually probably when I looked on the Google Maps and that and worked, I'm probably actually just horizontal with a stone. And as I said, it's freezing, and I hears rustling and like the wire fence sort of twanging. And I'm like, what's that? And I turned round, and here's this figure, jet black, as black as, and this is what kind of spooked me on Sunday night watching Truth Proof, was because that thing in front of the Andy's car, solid black as the blackest in the woods, in the sky, everything. You can actually see the outline of this.
You're actually seeing this, though, aren't you?
Seeing this, I'm seeing it, and what come with that was fear. I've never felt fear like it. I mean, 16, you're that age, you're full of bravado, scooter boy, nobody's going to, and I was terrified.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was, but I certainly knew it wasn't human. And this thing must have been about 6.5 foot tall, taller than me, quite an average kind of build, but it was the shape of its head which was really strange. It had like an elongated front.
Okay.
Elongated, and I've spoke to folk about it. I mean, Mark Anderson was like, "Oh, could have been a dog man with a." I was
just gonna say, like a muzzle or just some kind of oval coming out.
Yeah, just like an oval. For me, you know, well, me and my mates, I told a few of my close friends about it, and they laughed, and they were saying, "Oh, probably some guy for the village foliage over the bums. Probably a guy with one of these 70s snorkel jackets on. So we just called it Snorkel Man for years. But no, this wasn't a guy wearing a jacket. This was a shape, you know, like what you see in the old grey whistle test, the outline of somebody, you know, the man on that, but the front of the face was just bizarre. No facial features, nothing like that. I started running. God, I ran like hell. And it must have been about a good mile and a half or whatever I ran till I got into the area which had just been completed, which was a bypass. And this is what I was thinking the other night was Stocks Bridge, newly built bypass, Windygate's newly built bypass, and with the new lighting system. When I got maybe a good few 100 yards into the lit area with the street lighting, and when I looked back, this thing was standing at the first street light. It had stopped following me. And I had passed maybe 4 or 5 cottages and a farmhouse on the left-hand side, running. I never once went and knocked on a door. I never ran into the village of Windygates or the half mile up into Methil Hill or anything like that. I just wanted to get home. And I kept sort of kind of jogging.
Were you glancing back as well?
Glancing back, looking, no sign of it. Got to the hill, the second roundabout, and it's the kind of like the straight going into leaving, and you're up, kind of walking up this hill, or running up a hill as I was, and it's gone round a slight bend and then onto the straight. I got up onto the straight and I started walking, and again I heard the wire fence gone. Here it is behind me again. And I ran like hell. That must have been about another 2.5 mile home, or 2 miles home. Got into the lit area, couldn't see it, but I kept running. And when I got home and into my bedroom, looking at my bedroom window, across the play park for where I lived, there was like a subway underneath the main road, and it was standing in the subway at the entrance to the subway. And it was looking about, it was looking from side to side. If that thing wanted me, it could have caught me.
Yeah.
It was stalking me. It was playing.
Were you actually audible as you're running? Were you screaming and saying, "No, go away"?
Well, I can't repeat what I was shouting in the live stream, put it that way. But what really gets me is when I look back. I mean, that must have took me about an hour and a half, I think, running and jogging and running and whatever. Not one car went past. And that is a main thoroughfare between these two villages. And back then in the 80s, mid-80s, nightclubs were booming. Everybody worked hard during the week. Everybody went out nightclubbing. There were buses that laid on. There was taxis going back and forward. It was Christmas time. It was Christmas party time. Not one. I can't remember one car, because I would have jumped out and stopped and said, "There's someone chasing me, give me a lift home," or something like that. I was absolutely terrified. But no, I just kept running. I just wanted to get home.
Stan, when you look back and you said it was at the first street light, did you see, was it lit up? Did you see any more detail on this?
No more detail. It was just that silhouette, black, flat silhouette, as black as you can, as that you can get. As I said, when I saw the video on Sunday night, and I actually put up and I saw it on, it never got read out. It was like, this is really similar to the experience that I had. And the whole thing about the feeling of fear coming over you. I think about it every day. There's not a day that goes past that I don't think about it. It's bizarre. And in relation to that, my mate whose dad had the farm, I remember when we were working together, his dad said, or he had said that back in the 70s, his dad took ill, and his dad had been ploughing the field and knocked the stone over. And his dad fell ill after that. And his dad never really got better until the guys for university over in Edinburgh or whatever came out and realigned the stone and put it back up. And then his dad got better. So his dad was maybe ill for about 2 to 3 weeks and quite serious. I think they thought he maybe had cancer. But bizarre. And then about maybe 6 to 8 months after that, my mate, big guy Shug, who was an American football player, 25 stone, built, I mean, 6 foot odds. And we had been out clubbing, we're coming back. None of us were drinkers. Coming back, and he was joking, oh, we'll maybe see Snorkel Man tonight, ha ha ha. And we gets to the bit and here's something standing at the side of the road. We couldn't make out what it was because we were then about 60, 65. And my mate Shug's like, what the was that? And as soon as he said that, the boot of his dad's car just popped up.
Really?
And I said, well, you better stop. He says, I'm not stopping. We hammered it into the lit area of the bypass, pulled over, and made me get out and shut the boot. So,
could have been worse. He could have drove off, Stan, you know?
Well, there you go. And then I would have to run back home again. But that whole area, as I said, you've got the village at the back, which is East Weems. Folklore. You've got the Macduff Castle, which seemingly the Macbeth Castle is based on, the story of Macbeth. I used to go along, visit my uncle. One of my cousins used to take me along. This is like mid to late 70s. And my uncle would tell me about all the local ghost stories. And when you're standing at the bus stop, look out for Green Jean. If you see a green light in the castle, it's Green Jean. So I'm like 8 or 9 and I'm terrified at this bus stop, waiting for this bus coming along, not even looking at the castle. But the darker side of that place is about a mile along the road where it meets the road from East Weems into Buckhaven, where my dad was kind of brought up for the age of 10. That was a big mining. Both areas are big mining areas. There was a massive disaster in East Weems colliery. Went on fire, and a lot of guys lost their lives there. And that was in the 60s. The junction where what they call the Buckenhind pub is on the verge of the village. There's a road for there connects up to the Stonysten or Standing Stone Road, where the lighted area is. The amount of deaths at that junction, and just the traffic deaths. Quite recently, I'm talking about 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, maybe I have to look it up. The cottage that was on the corner got demolished because the guy in there killed his disabled kids. Just one day, just killed his kids. Very, very dark.
Oppressive area. As I said, the Standing Stone Roads had quite a few fatalities on it over the last. I mean, when I was young at that time, you hardly heard anybody, dying on that road. But it just seems to be in the last 20 to 15 years, there seems to be a lot. And not even 2 cars, just 1 car, just coming off the road for whatever reason. You talked about hearing that wire twang,
yeah,
and then you ran for a while, yeah. And then you heard it again. So either there's fencing all the way along, or was that some kind of effect of whatever it was that were chasing you?
I think it was definitely the fencing. That there's fencing so far along, and then it's just sort of like grass verge after that, because there's sort of like, I don't know what they call it in Yorkshire, but where they put all the slag for the pit bings and all the heaps of rubble. That's on the right hand side. So I was running past that. There's no fence in there. It's just hedging. But where I was running up the hill and on the last straight, there was wire fencing at that time up along the edge.
It just seems strange, Stan. Not what you're saying. It just seems strange that you'd hear the twang of wire again.
Exactly.
Because you assume it's following you following in your footsteps. So why is it just?
Well,
is it just something to frighten you? Do you know what I mean?
The only thing I think is that how it caught up. Well, I mean, I'd say how it caught up so quick. I mean, I'm the Sebco or anything like that. But I think it actually cut across the ploughed field.
I see.
Hit came in a straight line as I was coming up round the curve, and I think it came up, and it was obviously just timing it perfect. It just came over the now, and this is the thing. Why so black? It didn't look anything actual physical. Why did it twang the fence? You know,
Yeah,
something so black and flat. It looked 2D. It didn't look 3D.
Did
It
you
was
see legs?
bizarre. Yeah, it had legs. Yeah, legs, arms. Yeah, humanoid shape, but just this really strange, you know.
You know, there'll be people in chat shouting, of course he saw legs. He said it were running, didn't he, Paul? I do realise that, but it's difficult, isn't it? You know what I mean? Sometimes you just see this black shape, shoulders and a head.
You know what? I wasn't hanging about to sit and go, okay, it's got this, that, and, you know, it's this height. That. I just wanted to get away because of the fear. The fear that was just horrendous I've never felt fear like it. The closest I felt that where I said we've got to get out of here was beginning of the year when we were at Royal Deeside. And
yeah, well, we're going to do that, aren't we? We're going to do that.
Happened. Yeah.
So I take it you didn't walk home that way again, Stan?
No. Been along there on my scooter many a time. Been along there on my scooter and many a time, but would never walk back. No. But again, yeah, you hear the stories in the area and folks seen this and folks seen that, but
you and your partner. Sorry, no, go on. We can talk.
There was an accident quite recent on it, and when I was looking on the local kind of Facebook pages with folk, and there was a wee comment where somebody went, "Oh, yeah, did somebody see the ghost again?" And you're thinking, "Oh, okay." But I'll maybe go back and have a look and message the person and say, by the way, what did you mean by that?
Yeah, definitely do that. Yeah.
I mean, there's my locals, the scheme that I lived in after we moved for the house where my gran died. We moved into a scheme that was built in the 60s on the back end of the village, the town of Leven. And before I moved up to Aberdeen, there was a woman had reported in the local paper she had saw ghostly figures walking along the back lane and then up the road towards Kenaway, another village. I saw these little villages with about a mile between each other, or they're running each other, you know.
Yeah.
And so our girls on the Facebook page I think it was about 2 years ago, went, does anybody remember? Boom. That was me. I saw it. This woman came on. And then other folk came on saying, oh, remember we were coming at so-and-so's house that night and this black figure walked past. We don't know what it was. We're on back in the house. Folk were coming forward with stuff that they had seen and had heard or had experienced. There was a guy put a photo up, and I'm not sure. I think I maybe sent it to you, Paul. He was walking down to his work one kind of frosty morning, and here he sees this shape kind of moving across the field and came across the road.
Yeah, I seem to remember that. Yeah.
He took a photo of it. So somebody posted that photo up saying, this is my mate's photo. What do you think of that? And you could make something out. So I took it and lightened it up, and it's a monk. It looks like a monk with a habit and everything. So one of the other local guys who's into the witches, and it's Leonard Lowe. He's another kind of local in Fife. He's got a museum, a witchcraft museum. And I contacted Leonard and I said, what do you think of this? And he's like, is that on the Kenaway Road heading to Leave? And I'm like, yeah. He went, you're not going to believe this. 2 years ago, see the steading across the road? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I was in there. There was German tourists hired that steading out because it's like a you know, one of these sort of kind of hostels where folk can go and you know, it's where bunks. They all left during the night because they were all seeing this monk walking about the steading.
It's fascinating.
And it's crazy. Once somebody comes out with something, everybody starts coming out.
Yeah, but what do you think, Stan? I'm not saying it weren't a monk, but you know, I use the term hooded figure because a lot of people see these hooded figures, and
Yeah.
sometimes if they see the facial where the face should be, they just see blackness.
You see black,
And
aye. You know
why
what?
does it have to, I'm not questioning it, but why does it have to be a monk?
Aye, that's it. Well, what I found out after that, well, it was with Leonard's. That Stedin, there used to be a monastery nearby,
Right,
and
that makes sense.
and the monks used to work the land because it was on the pilgrims' route up to St Andrews.
Right.
Which, you know, you've got like I think St Andrews Castle and the countermine underneath. That is where they held the first Church of Scotland service, so to speak. You know,
There's a lot of history.
the Protestants held the castle, but the Catholics were trying to get in, and they were digging a countermine under to get in, and then they were doing another mine so they could meet, and they had this like underground battle, which is crazy, isn't it? I mean,
It really is, yeah, absolutely.
When you hear that kind of stuff, it's and as I said, working with the council in that area for like 7 years, the stuff that you hear, and I just love to kind of speak to the old guys and say, "Oh, Ken, have you heard any weird stuff about this place?" "Oh, aye, Ken," and they'll go into all the legends and the folklore.
And that's how we find it out, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so you and your partner, then you go into these locations. This one where you had this experience running home at 16 years old.
Aye.
How many times have you been there?
I've been back along that road quite a bit. It's the main road, and
I'm on about on your ghostly excursions.
Oh, have you been there? No, I wouldn't even think about stopping on that road. Not because not because of what happened to me, but for safety.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there's not really a place you can pull in. If you bump up onto the verge, it's quite soft. There's a chance you'll get stuck.
Right.
We've drove. I mean, in fact, what happened was when we went down there last year, I never really told Jo where it was, and Jo is quite in tune. She doesn't give herself enough credit, and I've often said to her when we're going out and about, "See, in about 10 minutes, we're going to go on this road. Do you think you could tune in?" And she's like, "Oh, aye, okay." I know what's happened on that road. She doesn't. So go along, and then she's like, boom. "Oh, I've just got this really horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach. Somebody died here." And she came out with a name, and she told me the name. I'm like, okay. I didn't want to say it on here because it is quite recent.
Okay.
And when I Googled the name, the road number, and it was a car full of young guys. Okay. And actually, the name that she come up with was The Survivor.
Right.
So, but it links it, and we've had a few instances where we went down to Motherwell. I went down to pick up a scooter frame for a guy, and Jo was needing to pick up a kakariki bird for a guy in the outskirts of Edinburgh. So I was like,
parakeet, that is it? A parakeet?
Yeah. Noisy thing. I didn't ring necks. I want to ring their neck. That's why I'm here. I'm at work doing it because I do this at home between our dog and our birds. No peace at all. So, and I worked out a route. I went, we could actually, saying to myself, could actually go along the A70 where the A70 incident happened. Let's see that Malcolm Robertson investigated. Let's go along and see if she picks up along here. So we comes to the village. Go and try to remember the name of it at the beginning of the A70, and it's called. Where is it now? Cranworth. So it comes to the village of Cranworth, and there's a bend with a dip. And we get to the bottom of this dip, and it's kind of still in the village, just on the road approaching out. And she's like, "Oh, something happened here." And I'm saying to myself, "Well, you've got this totally wrong. We're about 15 miles away, Ken." So anyway, we travels on, and we're going on. And we get up near Harper Rig, a reservoir where the A70 incident took place. And where we can't see anything. We're just on a country road with fields, and she's like, we're coming up to a big body of water. And as we turned the bend, she's just like, here, something happened here. Something really uncomfortable happened here to somebody. She goes, it didn't die. She goes, but something horrible happened. And I'm like, okay. So when we stopped the car, when we got near Edinburgh and stopped for a coffee, I was like, right, you said something happened here. So I put in A70, put in the village. 2 years before that, there was a lorry and a van had a smash on that bend, and the guy in the van died.
That's all right.
And it's like, and I said to her, now do you believe? I goes, and then at that reservoir, that's where the A70 happened. That is where, we're on the A70, that is where that abduction case happened with the two guys. The links between some of these, and this is weird, the links between some of these things, like Charmaine's experience at Carmiley. I go to the village hall there. They have like a what they call a micro scooter rally, but it's just a local club for Dundee. And I was like, Carmiley, God, this is where that happened. And then the A70, that's near where I used to go to a farmyard kind of scooter rally party, just within a couple of miles. So even back then in the 90s, I had an 80 road map marked where things happened, like Calvin incident, where the A90 happened. And, you know, I moved up to Aberdeen, became a dad. That kind of stuff fell to the wayside a little bit. But when I worked with the council, one of the guys who was really into the UFO thing, it was at the time when Mars Attacks and Independence Day came out, and he was all excited about this. And I'm like, that's okay, but I like the real stuff. I like reading about the real stuff that folk said they've seen. And he was telling me about a few of the incidents that's happened just with him working in the council, the sort of like gardening department, and just meeting folk and what folk have been telling him. Village of Balmeedy, about 6 miles north of Aberdeen, 1993 or something. And this woman, her dog's needing it, opens the patio doors, dog goes out, dog's acting weird, go out, run back in again when they go out. She walks out, and here's this black triangle floating along the coastline towards Aberdeen, gets to where like the main kind of beach esplanade is, or the boulevard where all the amusement arcades are, and this thing just shoots right up into the sky. Straight up, right up. Another case just south of Aberdeen. This was in the 90s, for the 70s and the 90s. There's a guy who lives in New Zealand now, and he's like a professor or something, or a university lecturer. And as a teenager, the stuff that he saw at the village that he lived in, called Muckles, unbelievable. And a couple, they were on the main A90 road coming into or leaving Aberdeen, and when they gets to, there's a really kind of, again, it's a tight bend and dip. Here's this thing just floating above the road. They drive underneath it, and then it follows them down to Stonehaven, where they turned off and went away the other way.
Are we talking triangle again, or something else?
Just like a disc shape sort of kind of thing, illuminated disc. So that's been in a few of the local kind of books written up about the local area. But I mean, there's been loads of stuff between Fife, Aberdeenshire, and everywhere in between.
Fascinating.
So active, Chris, isn't it?
It is. It's so active.
Yeah, and is there a lot of researchers up there, Stan, or just literally a handful?
Just a handful. I think there's nothing much up my way. I think in Inverness there's a group of people. There's a lady, I think, who's quite interested in the subject. Maybe out in Inverurie way, but I think she's very private when it comes. I do think she likes maybe folk knowing. You know what, like folk just, didn't like I mean, it took me long enough to come forward to speak about my stuff, because. I've just seen the question there. I actually worked.
Well, if you feel like answering it, go for it.
Ben McDewey, been out there, never climbed it, but that area, when I got into the line of work that I'm in now, I first started working in a homeless, a refuge sort of crisis centre for homeless people, and there was a guy who was ex-military. And he used to come up and help me in the kitchen. We used to make food for the homeless guys. And we got talking about stuff. And he was saying that he was an avid hill walker. And he goes, he says, I've been up there, he says, and I've been, across to the other side, there's like a quarry, what they call and he says, I seen this thing clambering up. He said it was massive. He says it was a big man of Ben McDewey. He says, that's exactly what it was. And he says, I've seen it.
And there's a witness there. I wonder how many more there are, Stan. That's just incredible.
Yeah. The Royal Deeside incident, as I said, when we started our page on Facebook, it was dead. And I just started it basically for the area of Aberdeen, just to see, is there anybody with experiences you'd like to share? I wanted to start maybe a little group where we could meet up in a pub or somewhere where we could sit and chat and talk about what folks seen. Mark got in contact with me, and he was saying that he was doing a counselling course, and he was like, there's not a counselling service for folk that's seen this kind of thing.
True.
I know how many folk have got post-traumatic stress disorder because they've seen something, or they're scared to come forward.
Yeah.
What about having a service for folk that they could come and speak and feel safe to talk about their experience without folk saying, you've got a screw loose, or, what drugs are you on, or, kind of mushrooms did you have in your pot noodle? Because you get all the comments, and it's like, no, I'm sound of mind. I know what I saw. I've got a respectable job. I do drink alcohol or whatever. But it's something that's needed, and it was just there was a few folk interested, but it really kind of kicked off when we'd done our first kind of little trip out the road, and we started putting photos up, and it's mostly Americans. Americans were going crazy for it.
This is the Royal Deeside, then.
Royal Deeside, yeah. But when Joe got a message for this guy saying, "I've had an experience." And she agreed to meet him, and she met him and done about a good half hour, 40 minutes interview. And he was on about what happened. The family, this was 2019.
Wow, that's
every year they used to go and hire this cottage for like just before Christmas for a little break away. When they got there was this horrendous smell in the area. I mean, they live in the countryside and whatever elsewhere in the Shire, and they know all the smells, but this was near a smell. They actually thought the drains was blocked. Drains were fine.
Yeah.
So they had been out with their dog down to an area what they call the Burnavat, which is kind of like, it's like the Devil's Pulpit down near Glasgow. It's where this bit of land's been carved out by a glacier, and it's a waterfall, and it's really, really nice to go to. But they had been there with the dog, and everybody that had been there with their dogs were walking back saying, don't know what's going on here today, but the dogs are settling, they're going crazy. They got back to the cottage, and there was kind of like weird grunting, weird kind of howling noises, nothing that they've heard before. The smell, the kids' sledges that had been left lying had been scent marked. They were stinking. Really horrible smell. The wife went through to the kitchen, and the kitchen window, the way the house is built, or the cottage is built, and obviously maybe like the driveway or whatever, the window's maybe about 9 foot for the ground where you'd be standing. She sees a face through the window, and it's got its hand on one of the window panes, And she obviously didn't scream. She was just like, because kids in the house, went back, told her husband, went and had a look, handprint still on the window. They were looking about out the window outside, couldn't see nothing, but they could hear stuff. Next morning, she opened the window and wiped a handprint off because she was scared in case what the kids would think if they saw this massive handprint on the window. That day, the next day, lots of 4x4 vehicles in the area, guys in sort of kind of like overalls, and this is an ex-military guy. He can nothing, no insignias, nothing on these overalls. It wasn't the hydroelectric board or anything like that, or against Scottish Gas or anything like this. And there was like amber lights, like amber searchlights up on the hill into the woods, the forestation, and they were all in different directions. And when I looked up about amber lights, and seemingly they prefer to use amber lights when they're searching, when there may be going to be lights heading towards each other, because it's not the same glare as like a white bright light. So what was going up there? There was no trees getting knocked down, nothing like that. So that was interesting. Reading that, listening to the guy's story, reading his wife's account, her handwritten account. So we decided we'll go out and have a look there. So me, Joe, and the dog get in the car and we go out. And we get to an area where this area is in it's the lowest point of the valley. It's a popular area that was popular with Queen Victoria because it is Royal Deeside. And the views in the daytime was fantastic. And a lot of stone circles, a lot of Neolithic stuff. And we heading along, and we got to a certain point, and our dog, who's not scared of anything, boom, coward. She was in the back. She's trying to get through in between us and whimpering like hell. So we get into the main village, and then we heads out the road where this location is. And you were able to, we don't know the exact location where the cottage was. We never knew where it was. The guy never told us. So we're driving around all these little roads and whatever, and I wonder if it could be that one. I wonder if it could be this one. Pitch black, can't see anything. And Joe, we get to this point in the road where Joe goes, stop here. And I'm like, we can't, stop here. So I stopped. She jumps out. And she's taking photos down in this valley. And I get a voice, and it was no mind speak. I heard this in my ear. What you doing here? At that point, Nessie, the dog, went absolutely berserk. And that's when I got the fear, that feeling of the similar fear that I had in 1986.
Yeah.
And I was like, get in the car, or words to that effect. Why? Just get in the car. And she saw that I was really scared, and she's kind of like, what's going on? I'm like, get in the car. So as soon as she gets in, she'd even got her door shut. I'm like pedal to the metal, and we gets about 1.5 miles down the road, and I pulls in, and she goes, we've got to go back. I goes, I'm not going back. She's like, we've got to go back. We have to go back. And reluctantly, I went back and drove, and she's laughing at me. And I'm like, hey, you've had the experience I had when I was a teenager. This is scary, scary stuff. So we get to the point of the road where this happened, and there was no way somebody could have been standing there. It's such a high verge, and it's dense trees on that side where. And the thing was, my window was up. This voice was in.
Just roll window down, because I was going to ask you, was your window up or down?
My window was up. My window was up. It was in the car. The voice. It wasn't somebody saying it outside. It was in the car. Hence the dog gone absolutely berserk. So we gets home, and that night I'll leave it till tomorrow. We'll put the no. I does the wee bit right up and uploads the photos, and the photos are all pretty dark. It's really dark. It was really misty. A lot of mist in the lower kind of valley. The only photo that came out where you could see something was of this cottage. The guy messaged Joe and went, "See that photo of the cottage?" She's like, "Yeah, that's the cottage we hired."
Right. Okay.
And that is where she said, "Stop here. I need to stop here."
So she got some feeling then.
She's well in tune. As I said to her, I goes, "You need to start trusting your gut more because you've got it." But folk are scared, you know. I mean, I'm not saying she's scared, but folk are scared of that kind of thing, the unknown, aren't they?
Absolutely.
It's terrifying for them. If you can't explain anything or can't control something, you're going to be scared.
You imagine you've got some presence in car with you. Your dog's not even perceived it, but it's there.
Yeah.
Until your dog doesn't know till it's audible. So your dog heard it.
Yeah.
Your dog heard it. Now, was it an Englishman or was it Scottish? What really? Okay.
What you doing here?
Right.
What you doing here? I had a similar kind of voice that me and my ex-wife heard on Culloden battlefield during the day. There was nobody on the battlefield. It was pretty much deserted. When again had my dog at the time with me, and a voice, Bithia's heard it. Watch your feet. Watch your feet. And that was kind of, I just looked at her and she looked at me and the dog looked at the two of us and the dog was like, "I'm wanting back to the car." So that was our trip to Culloden finished. But that's the second time I've heard a kind of disembodied voice, or you know, and it wasn't. I knew it wasn't in my head because as soon as the words were spoken, I heard them in this ear. The dog went absolutely nuts, absolutely nuts. We spoke to a friend who's also comes out on our investigations, Kev Duncan. He comes out with us quite a bit, and he was sitting before we went out one night. He goes, "I had a really weird dream." He says that we were driving down this country road, and he says we got to this part of the road now, and I went, "This is where it happened with the voice," and the dog went nuts. Nessie went nuts, and we're like, "Okay." So we're heading out the road. Again, the dog get to a certain point, and this is where we found out during the day on our third trip out why this, or what we reckon, why we reckon this happens, is the dog just goes into like this kind of fearful mood. And when we went out in daytime, there's a Neolithic sort of kind of little house built in the field. It's under the ground, and Joe had said before that, "I'm getting the word slaughter here." Found out that these kind of things were used for sacrifices.
Really? Okay, it's fascinating.
And she said the word slaughter before we even looked up that place. Again, there's a lot of labour you can nip out and pop in and investigate it. We've still to go and do that. But on that second night we went out, everybody felt the energy. It was just so low. As soon as you start getting into the low points of that valley, you can feel it. The negativity, it's strange. Gets through the village, and then we heads out the other side along again to the location where this happened. And we hadn't said anything to Kev. And Kev's just like, "See where this grip bin is?" "Yeah." "Is this where it happened?" I'm like, "Yep." He went, This is the place I saw in my dream. There's a road goes off to the left." And right enough, there is. So our road goes off to the left. So that night we didn't stop. We kept going. We were about another mile up the road, and there's a road sign to where the location where the guy said he saw the lights being flashed around, and where he heard like the howls or whatever coming from. So we follows the road sign. It's only a mile and a half away up to that location. It's taking us forever. And I'm like, where the hell? I'm following the signs. I'm turning left in that direction. But then we're coming into this village. And I'm like, where are we? And we're like, don't know. So I pulls over, checks on my Google Maps. And we're heading back into the village we had just came out of. But we're like
no knowledge of turning.
20 minutes to half an hour time. Where's it went? And we were all feeling really kind of lightheaded. Kev was in the back of the car and he's saying, I'm feeling really spacey. He says, I'm feeling out of it. I reckon what's happened. He says, it's just like I've woke up and we're here.
Strange.
We'd actually ended up, it's a bizarre area. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Yeah, as I said, that there's a lot of the stone circles there, a lot of the like the Burnavat, and then you've got all the stuff that comes and goes with the Cairn Gorms, all the just right on the edge. I mean, you've even got like Bankery, which is nearer Aberdeen. That's like 20 miles out of Aberdeen, and Torfins, where guys were chased by a Bigfoot type kind of thing. 3 of them. It was running alongside their car. That was early 90s. We've been doing that road as well. And again, it seems to be where there's water sources. I remember reading that they get seen to where there's maybe been like natural springs, which back in folklore, folk went to get the water because it had, properties to make you better and that kind of thing. Yeah. That there's a natural spring there with a wee fountain where you could drink for the spring and all that kind of thing there. So all these kind of things kind of tie in, but it's the whole kind of feeling of the place is just amazing. It could be scary, but it could be amazing as well.
And there's earthworks in area as well, burial mounds and things like
burial
that.
Burial mounds, earthworks, as I said, that thing that's at the side of the road, which you only notice the sign for it when you're on it. It's just like a little kind of igloo-shaped kind of stone building, which is into the ground, and that was used for sacrifices.
Obviously, I want to stay where you are, Stan, but well, it's just in my head. Did you say you called your dog Nessie?
Nessie, because she's a monster.
Thinking a lot less monster, yeah.
Yeah.
We might touch on your views on that, but let's just carry on where we are. I've just I didn't want to lose it while we're in my head.
So that was what happened there, and we've been out a third time. Nothing really much happened then, but we often go out and we get out. I mean, me and Kev went out one night. It was actually a work colleague of mine. There's a place called it's pronounced Fingen, but it's actually spelled Finnan, and it was an area which runs for a place called Petarch over to sort of like to Bankery. It's the back road for Bankery to Petarch over the hill. And it was, as far as I know, there's a standing stone at the side of the road. There's a war memorial. One of my old work colleagues had said that her and her friend had been out there. She's quite spiritual. And both of them had seen what they described was ghostly heads on spikes at the side of the road. So me and Kev decided to go out one night, and it had been snowing. So the roads were a bit tricky, but that's not going to stop us. We took Nessie with us, pulled into the lay-by where the stone is, and it was okay. I was walking about. I done a wee video, put it up on the page, and didn't feel anything untoward or whatever. Kev went away. He went away raking in the woods with a torch and whatever, and we comes back about 15 minutes later, and we gets in the car. As soon as we gets in the car and leaves the lay-by, the dog starts going like nuts, and I mean like terrified for about a mile and a half down this road. And it wasn't until we got into the other village of Bankery where she really was settled. And when I was telling my colleague that, nothing really happened apart from when we got in the car and we went down the road for there towards Petarch, but she went, well, it's a stretch between there down to Petarch where we saw the heads. Nothing beforehand. So the dog was obviously sensing something.
Picking up on something,
and it was a hunting ground for the kings of Scotland back in like 1,000 years ago. And then all your noble gentry would come and hunt there. And I think if, we're also near an area where there was a massive battle on the other side of Bankery, where Mary Queen of Scots watched the battle for on top of a hill, and she watched two kind of local clans kind of dishing it out, and that's got a weird kind of feeling about it. The woods, when I used to drive past there, I used to think, oh, something's happened in there. Then somebody told me about that, and then the next week they had started to fell the trees, and here's the monument to the battle, which I had no clue about. So just the energies in that area.
And the energy stand, there's a lot of negatives, isn't there?
Yeah.
Do you think trauma then and
Definitely
negative energy, it kind of lingers? I won't say forever, but it just lingers and lingers and lingers. Do you think it's almost imprinted itself into the land?
I mean, how many folk have died there? How many folk have been slaughtered there in horrific deaths? Thousands. Battles or the UK.
So is it energy? I don't know if there's a right or a wrong answer here, Stan. Is it, in your opinion, then just energy that's contained in some of these places, and there's not the essence of anything that could harm anyone? It's just that energy that's there.
I think it's just about the bad feeling. I mean, I'm a big believer that folks say they see a ghost. I'm quite a believer that folk do see that. I mean, I had an experience on night shift where, when I was working security, and it was in a newspaper plant of all places in Aberdeen, and I had been working there about a year. Never any kind of trouble. Went on out in patrol one night, walked through this quite a new part of the plant offices, and the hair in the back of my neck just went up. Walked through the lower part of the building. Never really just wanted to get out of there as quick as I can, but I knew I had to finish my patrol. So up the stairwell, as I was going up the stairwell, I could hear my heart beating in my ears, and we're not allowed to put lights on. But I stuck my hand through this fire door and I put the light switch on, and it's the kind of strip lights that flash before they come on. This was probably like 1997. This was, and there was a guy in blue overalls standing as the lights was flashing, and then when the lights went out, wasn't he there? A guy in overalls, and I thought, oh, somebody for the printing press or the press room's been up here. We're in the advertising department. So I goes and looks in the toilets, and nobody there, but couldn't see anything. Went down, finished my patrol, went back, and my boss, the guy who was on charge that night with me, he's like, did you put the lights on up there? Because their gatehouse was right next to it. I'm like, yep. He goes, you're not meant to put lights on. I'm like, I know. And he went, did you see them?
Ah, right.
And I'm like, yep. And he goes, Misty us have, but we did tell nobody. And speaking the next day to some of the lasses that worked in the telesales, because it was a local newspaper, they used to phone up and pester folk at tea time. Would you like the local paper delivered? So they had heard that I had seen something. So it went round like wildfire, round the place. And one of the lassies was saying, she goes, we often sit here and we're positive there's a guy watches us through the fire door. The strips of the glass with the metal strips through it, the mesh. And she goes, every time we turn round, he kind of steps back. And we've got up and opened the door, but there's nobody there. About a week later, I heard that building actually, where that building is, that used to be a big warehouse for Nestle's, the chocolate place. That was a big warehouse in Aberdeen. And a guy died in the warehouse. He just collapsed, died, heart attack. And this was back in the 70s. And when I think about it, was that what I was picking up with the heart beating in my ears? The thump, 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 thump. Or was it just my adrenaline? You kind of start to
you ask all these questions. It's good to ask Dan as well,
and it goes on through your head with the stuff that you've kind of experienced. So that was another one. Another thing through my kind of work up here that I've experienced was I used to go into a centre to help folk who maybe had learning difficulties, and when they were maybe like felt comfortable enough to maybe look at perhaps looking at maybe going into part-time work. That's my job, is I help folk look at the possibility of going into work. And we used to go into this place that it's, in fact, but this place is in a book by an author who we done a seance with back in like the early 2000. It must be about 2012. Graham Milne, he's wrote quite a lot of books about haunted Aberdeen, and great researcher, done a lot of stuff. And he invited us along, said, "Do you fancy coming?" Because he worked there at the time, doing maybe like a wee vigil some night. And right enough, there was a woman there who could facilitate this kind of thing, and she done it. And the guy who was the big non-believer, saying, "This is a load of crap. I've got my cameras set up. I've got my dictaphone set up. Ken, they've all been fully charged. We'll find out if there's anything or not." Well, this thing picked on him.
Really?
He burst into tears when we were sitting in circle. This woman came out with some of the stuff that she came out with was phenomenal about this guy and his wife who was there. They lived out in one of the estates outside Aberdeen in a rented farmhouse. And this woman's gone to them, "You've done a painting. It's like a multicolored kind of swirl." She goes, "But you keep thinking the kids keep knocking it off the wall at the bottom of the stairs. It's not your kids, it's your auntie. That should be up in the living room. Lay off the kids, it's not them." And then the guy was picking up. He felt, because when he burst into tears, he felt that his head was getting forced into water, then back up again, and then back into water again and back up. And it transpires that centre back in the 60s was a women's centre for women who came to Aberdeen for all your like fishing villages that came into Aberdeen looking for good jobs because of the oil boom. But of course, there's only so much jobs. And all these women came for all these little fishing villages and for the country, and they were actually getting preyed on, and they were having to kind of turn to other things to make money.
To get money. Yeah.
So this was a support centre, and seemingly there was a woman who used to prey on the really young ones of them that used that centre, and this was the thing that she'd done, was put their head into the water in the sink in the shower room. And the original shower was still there, and it was like something for The Shining. It was horrible. But the things that's happened in there, the staff in there were telling me, that I wouldn't. I mean, there was one woman who used to. She said, "If I've been on a night out and I've spent all my money and I didn't have money for a taxi," she goes, "I'd go there and kip in there with my sleeping bag because it's in the middle of town." She says, "But not anymore. Doors would open, lifts would come up themselves that were actually out of commission. Just loads of stuff happening there. A real negative vibe about the place, and even when you first went in that place." When you walk past the toilets, you automatically were drawn to look at the toilet doors. Something just pulled your attention. Somebody could be speaking to you at the end of the corridor saying, "Hi, Stan, how are you getting on?" You were like, "Aye." And you just couldn't help but look. You were drawn.
Yeah.
It's weird. And this is built on top of a kid's nursery. And then it's built on the back of what is called a venue called the Lemon Tree, where it's gigs and concerts and stage acts. And one of the guys I work with now who used to do security in there when gigs and that was on, the stories that he was able to relay when he worked there, they were all sitting having a drink one night after a gig. Everybody was out, and they also saw a pair of legs walk across the stage. Transpires that area was dug up back in the 60s for redevelopment, and it was an ancient graveyard.
Right.
And they just ripped it up and just whatever they done with the remains, but they built the foundations of these buildings, and that's it.
Disturbed the ground.
Aye. Yeah. Yeah.
Just before we carry on, and I hope you don't mind me doing this, but I'm fascinated by this because everything you've talked about there is almost like tracings in time, the pair of legs walking. But that voice you heard in car weren't Stan, was it?
No.
That's chilling. That I don't know what you'll think, Chris, and people in chat, but fancy and to think that this thing, whatever it was, it had passed through a solid object.
Aye.
There's a presence in there with you. It's fascinating.
Very similar to the experience on as I said on Culloden, where it wasn't. You can't just say it was like a recording of a voice for years ago. It was actually communicating with me direct. What are you doing here? Or what are you doing here? What are you doing here? And then the one, watch your feet.
Yeah, watch your feet.
Watch your feet, because I mean it's an old battleground. It's scrubland and moorland.
What do you think, Stan? Is it something that's actually living and residing in the area, and it's doing this to many people?
I think there's many things. I think, as you said, that the phenomenon covers loads of stuff. I've got a great belief that it can tap into what your fear is.
Well, you're going exactly where I am in my mind now, because I'm thinking, and I think Chris is probably thinking same, because it's got a Scottish accent. Yeah. We've got something at Deeside that's growling in people's ears.
Aye, yeah.
Right on the shoulder, and
right on the shoulder.
Nothing there.
Yeah, nothing there. Yeah.
Is it tapping into what it thinks people might be
scared of?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when you go back and you speak about like the fairies and this and that. Who's not to say that is new? We are seeing them as what we would call as aliens.
Absolutely.
Or whatever, Yeah. You look back in history, even to hear Bible stories, is where they came down in a chariot with fire coming out the back and whatever.
UFO.
Yeah. What's the most logical? What is the most logical explanation of that? It's either an advanced race or somebody or a race coming for, wherever, far advanced than what we are.
I would think so.
The haunting stuff, Paul, we've talked about this before, the haunting, ghostly type stuff, you can kind of, to me, it feels more tangible. It seems more explainable than the creature at the window as an example, because what the hell is that? I mean, did she describe it? What did it look like?
I mean, my first experience heard anything about a Bigfoot was when the Bionic Man was fighting the Bigfoot,
Yeah. Well, what did you say then, though, Chris? What did you say? Did she do what? Did
she describe it? What did it look like? Yeah.
Yeah. She I think she's done a drawing, and it was very like ape-like features, squashed nose, heavy brow. Hair.
I mean, because do we? I mean, so many options here, but do you tie that into an ancient ghost of a relic hominid? I mean, is that where we go with this?
It's like the thing that everybody sees ghosts, but
it's left physical, though, isn't it? It's left a print.
Yeah, a handprint,
and it's pissed all over the sledges as well. Don't forget.
Scent mark.
I forgot about
scent mark. Yeah, but as you see, it's like I had somebody going to me, but ghosts, but clothes don't die. Maybe but I've got a mate who bought a 1960s mod suit back in the 80s at a charity shop, and he was convinced it was haunted.
A lot of people say that, don't they, about items?
He would hang it up in his wardrobe, and it would be found in the living room the next morning.
It's crazy. And once again, you're touching on some. Is that the presence and the essence of whoever had it? That it was such a strong presence. Yeah. You don't know, did it? It sounds crazy, Stan.
Did they love that suit that much? That was their suit where they went out and had, so much good times and everything. Is
it any less crazy than a 7 foot or 8 foot hominid putting its hand on a window? It's not really, is it? We haven't touched on any questions yet, have we?
We've got
Yeah, we've got quite a few here. I mean, this is a little bit off the cuff. David Hunt's asking Stan, do you think CERN has anything to do with the different entities?
Well, I think CERN, I think they're messing with stuff that, the Hadron Collider and everything like that. I think they're things is bound to have happened since, science is great, but my dad said scientists can be dangerous people.
Mm.
I mean, you just look at Oppenheimer with a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
It just didn't, kill millions or thousands of people in Japan, but did it open a portal? Because everything kicked off since they done the tests on the atom bomb.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because they do say that's why some of these ETs turned up in the first place, because it was displacing the dimensional stability. And I mean, and just like you said, Stan, I mean, it would be okay, I suppose, to some degree, if the guys at CERN, if they were all scientists, but they're not. They're occultists and all sorts of dark magicians are involved with all that stuff. People who are not into this subject would think, well, that's crazy what we've just said, but
I have no knowledge of this, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, just the people involved, they're all digging. Even the people involved, JPL, NASA, or even just that stuff, they're all occultists.
Okay.
Crowley and who's the other guy who killed himself, who died in the rocket explosion? The famous one. I can't remember his name. But yeah, he was. They were just summoning these entities for technology. They believe. But yeah, they were all occultists. So I can't see. And of course, John D. Sorry. And this has been going on a long time, and it's still. There's no reason to think it's stopped now.
No,
definitely not. So next question, Steve Collins asking, Stan, have you ever took any accounts of oil rig workers?
No. I tend to find that a lot of the guys that work offshore, if they were to see something, they wouldn't disclose it. They're almost, a lot of the guys are ex-military as well, so they've got this kind of thing like keeping stum, because it's their livelihood. If you're going to go on and go back to your boss and say, I just saw a UFO come down and go into the water and go past the oil rig and come into their side, you'd be getting medevaced.
Yeah, but absolutely. And all I will say on that is, because, and you're right, Stan, because it's almost like coal mining communities, and I'm not saying they keep quiet, but they're secular, aren't they? And they keep themselves to the fishing communities.
Yeah.
It took ages for me to get under the skin of some of these fishing people within fishing communities. Yeah. But oil rigs, and I'm not going to say where, but I do have a guy sending me information. And all I will say is I also got the people on the rigs are also privy to listening to Coast Guard transmissions.
Yeah.
And they get told to watch out for lights. Have you seen any orange lights? We've got reports of orange lights, and I get those recordings occasionally, which I would never play because it's not allowed. It's not legal, is it? So I do get them, and that's connected to oil rigs. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Rivings and Pipe Beast Lee Roscoe is asking, does most of the paranormal activity happen when you're with your other half, Stan, or just yourself?
I would mostly say when we're together. Joe's the one that can really kind of like pick stuff up. But that night she got out and was picking up to step out and take a photo of this. Well, she couldn't see anything. She just had to take a photo of this field. And it wasn't until we got back and we looked at the photos. Why is this one lit up? Then I heard the voice. So is it because she's there? She didn't sense anybody or anything in the car or never heard the voice. Me and the dog heard the voice. I think she was just so transfixed on taking the photo in the field, which later, when we looked at it, here's the cottage. But I mean, it's 6 1/2 really. Sometimes I get it, sometimes she gets it.
Did you feel like it was still in car with you? Whatever it was?
No, it had gone. Because if it was still in the car, I wouldn't be in the car.
No.
Sorry, I'm chuckling away there. My camera's going. But no, it wasn't in the car. And even when we went back, we couldn't really get that feeling of anything being there. I was apprehensive. but there was nothing to indicate that there was a presence there. But on our other trips, definitely that one in the middle was the one where we kind of had the missing time of like 20 minutes to half an hour, and we ended up in the village, and we're like, wait a minute, how did we end up here when we've just been going in the total opposite direction?
Yeah.
You know, because I remember saying it's taking us ages to get here. It's only 1.5 miles, and we'd actually travelled 6 miles.
It is, and I'm saying it, and I haven't got one. I don't use one, but here's where we need a dash cam. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it would pick up any flukes or anomalies. Linny always uses a dash cam, and twice on way home from Bempton, we've had a huge flash of red light that I saw, and I stopped my car, and he'd got it on his dash cam. And another time Ian saw it and I didn't. So I think it's these bits, not expensive, are they? But these bits of kit are kind of invaluable.
No, we when I drive, Joe or Kev will hold the phone up and film it that way. You know, we've not got any kind of equipment. I'm not a researcher. We just like going out to places where folk have said they've seen something. And we just like to see, just pick up the energy and just see, are we going to get spooked? Can we pick anything up? And, you know, there's been a few things happened and we've thought, we should have maybe had someone on here recording this.
I think you underplay yourself, Stan. You know, you go out there, you sort of walk the walk, don't you? And there's a lot of people. I mean, what is research? I think everybody in chats are just as interested as you, Stan, and me and Chris, because we're all looking for our little piece of the puzzle. But you're out there, you're doing it. And there's a lot of people who call themselves researchers who do nothing except sit in front of a keyboard and a laptop, you know?
Yeah. I mean, but you're not going to see anything yourself if you're going to be sitting in the house, are you? I mean, you've got to go out. You've got to, my flat's in the city centre pretty much. But I'm lucky where I am. I'm up a lane. There's a few, or we're up a lane that there's a few big tall buildings round about us that block out street lights. So we're in our own little kind of dark area, and we go out to the wee courtyard at the back and we sit, and we see stuff moving. We have a look on the phones with the apps. There's nothing up there because we've got an airport. We've got helicopters coming back and forward all the time for the rigs. We know what a helicopter looks like. We can what a plane looks like. You know, we're nae daft. And some of the lights we try to film it on our mobiles. We've got some, and I think we have posted it up on some of our stuff on the Facebook page. But there was one night. It was in like a southwesterly direction. It was going, and then it went across. It stopped, and then it flew back at speed. A much faster speed, and we've kind of got the tail end of that as it's shooting off, and again it's doing a wee bit of weird manoeuvre. But if you're not gonna sit and watch, you know, you're not going to see nothing.
It's amazing what you see.
If you're not going to go out and you know, as I said, Joe's the one she's the brave one that's up for going and camping in the woods and tromping through the woods and getting out Bigfoot calls and just to see what gets back. There was one night we went out and she'd done it, and in one of the fields there was a torch coming and you heard a woman going, "What was that?" So we jumped in the car and sped off. But you're not going to see nothing if you're going to just sit, you know. And I suppose we're lucky.
So Lee's asking, and I'll just add to this in a bit. What does Stan think of the subject was at Stockton Bypass on Sunday's TP? And obviously nobody made any judgment as to what it was, not even Andrew who filmed it, but he's been back the same night. So I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah. I saw it, and my thought right away was it's very similar, not in shape, but to the density, the blackness, and the way it came up and came over. And I instantly, my gut feeling was Dogman.
Well, the reason he went back that same night with two of his friends. He thinks he's debunked it. That doesn't debunk what you saw, Stan, because you saw it. You're not bearing in mind that, and Andy never saw this until he looked at the film afterwards.
Yeah.
And he thinks it's something low that's past the headlights.
Headlights, aye.
And he tried to replicate it. He couldn't, but he's
Yeah.
got that gut feeling that that's what
Yeah.
it is. And I think that's good. I think it's great that the man's been out there and tried to replicate it and tried to debunk it. It shows how genuine the man is that he's had a go at doing that.
When I seen it and I saw the thing and I thought Dogman, and then I was thinking, for that to be seen the way it was, it had to be below the headlights or below the car bonnet in front of the headlights. And even if there's a slight bit of moisture that you can't see by eye, you know, I mean, there's been nights we've went out and taken photos and they look great. And then the next photos, there's all this weird blurriness and cloud and weird colours, and that's just because of moisture in the air. You're getting folk going, oh, what's happened here? It could be getting that's just the, okay.
Mark Anderson, Stan, can I ask about the standing stones in Aberdeenshire?
Oh, I mean, where do you start with them? There's absolutely loads of them. There's burial grounds. There's. I mean, we're surrounded in them. And they've all got the strangest names. Getting the pronunciation of them's pretty, and folk get upset. I suppose it'd be like in your area, Paul, where if you pronounce the name of a village wrong,
But if you pronounced it how it's meant to be pronounced, nobody on this live stream would understand you.
Yeah. It's like the village at Alford. Now it's spelled Alford, but if you call it Alford, you get hung, drawn, and quartered. It's Afford. You don't pronounce the L. And it's like cults. It's like Cooter gets called Cooter. All these wee villages that's runs along the River Dee and up into Kinroyal Deeside. There's loads of stone circles along there. There's just too much to list. And I mean, we have visited a few, and energy in them is strong. Never been. I think we've only been out to one during the night, which was it was more like a fire pits for burning, deceased, and that's next to a farm. And we went out there, and you walk up like this avenue with these trees on each side, this grass avenue, and it's like, and this farmer's dog jumped the fence and started barking at us at 1 o'clock in the morning, and it'd been a happy. It would have been a nice time to have a nappy on. I'll tell you that much.
Did you have Nessie with you?
No, we didn't have her at the time. This was before we went down and picked her up. We went. She was a lockdown dog. We went down and picked her up from Mansfield. So it was like a 20-hour round journey to Mansfield to pick up Nessie and then bring her up the road. But she's really. I mean, the flat that we're in. It was built 1875, and it's a proper kind of like 4 in a block, little kind of granite cottage. So it's got 4 flats, and it's on the edge where used to be a lot of the slaughterhouses in Aberdeen were. You got the Butcher's Arms pub at the bottom of the street. So when my kind of flat was built, the cottage, there wasn't a lot of the housing that's surrounding it there. There's some nights when we're going out, and if we're just going out the back because she needs a pee, she'll just stop dead, and she'll not go any further, and her head will dip down like she's cowering, and she'll be staring at the back door out to the back, and I'm got the torch and I'm saying, "Come on, out we go." No, she'll run back and sit at the door to get back in the flat.
Right.
There's definitely, and there's other times when she's been staring at the stairs for the flats upstairs, and she'll not go any further. Okay. It's like she's watching something.
Do you want to address that question?
Yeah,
Steve.
Steve Collins asking, what do you make of the Robert Taylor incident at Livingston?
Well, you know what, the evidence is there. Eh? It's a fascinating story. I've still got to go to Decmont, and I'm planning to meet up with Mark Anderson at some, because he just lives pretty much there. It's within walking distance. So I fancy going down there just to see the area, feel the vibe,
Yeah,
see what
absolutely.
see what we could pick up.
I don't know this incident. What is this incident?
Go on.
A
I do, but I'll not know it as good as Stan. So just
forestry
break it down.
worker was out doing his rounds in the woods at Deckerman. Ex-military man. This was like 1979.
Oh,
I
is it
mean,
the rolling the
Yeah,
that's
that's
it.
it. Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
Malcolm's
Robinson's,
got the
yes.
trousers.
That's right.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah, sorry, yeah, but I didn't know the name.
And the
Yeah,
police,
brilliant,
the
yes.
police say that this has got physical evidence to charge somebody with assault.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, it's a
You know,
So he's
fascinating
in the
case.
forest, and these almost Sputnik-like things
Yeah.
follow him, don't they? And
Like
try to
wartime mines with his
Yeah.
spikes, you know?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a crazy story, but
Unbelievable. But,
Yeah, really
but-
odd.
and
really
also
odd.
the stuff about Mark Rahanish.
Yeah.
You know, down in the southwest of Scotland, the longest airstrip, which it used to be an RAF base, and that kind of, I've got a mate who was in the Royal Marines, and we just got talking one night, and a few things all kind of clicked into place. So it's quite kind of strange how a conversation can go that, because my mates that's been in the RAF and been in the forces, I was saying to him, is there anything, you ever saw any of these documentaries with these American pilots or these guys that's fighting in Afghanistan and they're seeing the jinn and whatever? And he's like, no. He says, but when I did work, he says, when I was stationed at Fars Lane, protecting the nuke subs, he says, we knew that we weren't meant to know that in the 90s there was a unit, American Navy SEALs, based at Mark Rahanish. And what they kind of gathered was they were based there because there was some kind of new fancy pants plane getting tested.
Tested at Macranish, yeah.
Mark Rahanish, you're not going to test it in your own backyard, are you? You're going to test it at other countries and see if their technology can, pick it up on radar, whatever.
And do you think that's the reason for the long runway?
Yeah, because seemingly if the space shuttle misses landing at Houston or wherever, that's the next stop. It's Mark Rahanish. That's its emergency kind of runway. So I've heard. Whether that's true, I don't know. But seemingly they've got a few in the world that they can use. But 1990, Calvin, it kind of ties in with that. Especially with it being the early 90s or 1990, that's when these Navy SEALs were there at Scotland. There's RAF Harrier jump jets involved tailing this thing or circling it. A friend's, my mate's sister's really good friend who was a nurse at the time and had been working at the hospital in Perth and was travelling back to the town of Methil on the east coast of Fife. She was coming past there's a bridge, Achmuir Bridge, which is just outside the village of Leslie near the new town of Glenrothes. And she come down through Scotland, a wee place called Scotland Well, very scenic, bendy, twisty road. And hovering above this bridge is this diamond-shaped craft. She's never seen nothing like it in her life. Got spooked, didn't even slow down, just glanced a few times, and we're like, Jesus, what's... Pedal to the metal, through the village, straight down to the local police station in Methil, right in, and told the guy on the desk that night. He took the details, kind of chuckled away. Aye, okay, yeah, right. 2 days later, knock at the door, two guys in grey suits, no men in black, but two guys in grey suits who she got the feeling they were either special branch, something like that, or MI6, intelligence. And she, oh, you saw something? What time? Blah, blah. You saw nothing. Don't ever talk about it. Don't talk about it. You saw nothing. and
Closed down.
that's and again, my mate, he used to work the doors. He was a bouncer in the early 90s, and one of the guys he worked with, who came from one of the fishing villages on the East Nuke of Fife, back in like the early 80s, they would go out with air rifles with torches strapped to them and go out at night and shoot pheasants and all that kind of thing. 3 o'clock in the morning, big flash of light. The next thing they woke up, it was like 7 in the morning in daylight. Can't remember anything about it.
Really?
And this guy says, forever since then, I've never looked into it. I didn't want to look into it, but I've always wondered why I've got anger issues.
All right. So he didn't before?
Didn't he before?
No.
But there's something, but I think he's scared. I mean, I suppose I would. I mean, folk have said to me, well, would you go and get, regressed that night? I don't think I would want to.
No.
My mental health is far more.
It's
I'd be scared in case I open my can of worms.
Mm.
Well, you mentioned PTSD, Stan, didn't you, earlier? And you're right.
Yeah,
it's absolutely rife, I would have thought, throughout this genre.
Yeah. And good on Mark for looking at that aspect of it, because as far as I know, nobody in this country, I know in America, the guys, that have been, hypnotized and regressed back. There's been a lot of support for them, but here in the UK, I'm not sure if there is. Folk, we've got that stiff upper lip here, haven't we? We didn't talk about that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
You
What year? Sorry for cutting through. What year was this incident with the diamond-shaped craft?
It was on 1990, the same year as Calvin.
1990.
1990.
Yeah. Just out of interest, at Barmston, which is not far from where I am, fishermen looked about the 6 mile out to sea, looking onto the land, saw a diamond-shaped craft.
Yeah.
And it turned on its own, on its own axis, and shot straight out to sea over the boats. And there were a few of them saw that, but not forced to be the same thing. But it's interesting, diamond-shaped when you say that.
Diamond-shaped, yeah. Exactly like how you would how you seen the photocopies of the replicated pictures of Calvin. It's just the same as that, diamond shaped.
If you were able to choose just one subject, throat net out, let's look at them all, Stan, what would you be looking into most, or would you just say everything?
Everything, but the one that stands out for me and that really caught my attention is the Calvin. I think it's because it touches on pretty much the everything in the UFO kind of sort of, or UAP sort of, as they call them, the sort of kind of thing. It's was it ours? Was it American? How did they produce it? Is it can backward engineering for downed UFOs? Is it, who knows? I think that's the one that opens a lot of questions. Does it explain the total flap of the early 90s or the UFOs that was seen over Belgium? I know they were black triangles, but and the thing is, I mean, what have they got that we don't know that they've got?
Absolutely, yeah. There's a question sorry, Chris, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to read that. It's a strange question.
Yeah, you do that. We might have to be careful with that one, but because
do you know anything about this, Stan?
Yeah, I've read about that. That's a bizarre incident. The woman's name has never been released.
No.
Who goes for a stroll at that time of the year when you've broke down and you've phoned for, assistance? Roadside assistance turns up, you're not there, and then she turns up a couple of days later in the middle of a field, about a mile or two away, half eaten.
It's crazy. I've got a cryptid report from Moncton.
Yeah.
Were there a British Aerospace Centre there?
That's right. Yeah.
And a naval base at the side of it.
Yep.
Yeah. I've got an incredible cryptid report from there.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning, very detailed, first-hand account. The woman who saw it.
Yeah. Was that the woman who worked on the base?
She worked on the base.
Yeah.
She heard me talking about it.
Yeah.
I've only ever spoke about it once. And Studio 21, just before we get to question, I'll be sending Chris your report tomorrow the Studio 21, and when Chris has rounded it all off, we'll let you know. But go on, the question.
Yeah, Stan, did you detect the calmness and almost forced serenity that surrounds Culloden?
Culloden is very, very peaceful. I've been there a few times. The first time I went was when I heard the disembodied voice. The second time must have been me and Joe went up to Inverness for the weekend. We went down the banks of Loch Ness. We went to Bolskine House, where Crowley, and we visited the graveyard, but it had went on fire again, and you couldn't get there. But there's always a car in the driveway blocking your kind of entrance. So I do think you can get up and have a scout about like how you used to.
Right.
We visited the Clava Cairns as well, which is only about 2 miles south of Culloden. That's spectacular. That's kind of like these big cairns where you could walk in, where they've done sacrificial stuff and that as well.
You feel the atmosphere.
Feel the atmosphere, and hardly anybody knows about it.
That's
the thing. But some of the reports along the Moray coast, there was one guy, a poacher, who went back to get his fish just near the Clava Cairns, which, as I said, near that far for Culloden. And here's what he described as a Bigfoot nicking his fish. You know, it's like, unbelievable. And he ran for it.
That's crazy, isn't it?
There's been a big cats. Back in the 90s, there was a farmer and his son shot a big cat. Vet came and took it away, and again they were told not to say anything. Not to say anything that you shot this. We want to keep it quiet. So there's a lot happens. There's a lot of folk went missing up our way.
Right.
There seems to be a pattern. I watched a podcast with a guy and he's kind of looked at the pattern for diagonally for the north east of Scotland, right down to where this 55-year-old woman went missing at Moncton, and there's folk gone missing all the way down that route, and some never been found. Quite recent ones as well, never been found. It's like the 411 thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
411. Yeah. That kind of stuff fascinates me. That and our last trip out to the Royal Deeside site, about a week later, it was the middle one, when we felt kind of lightheaded and weird and we had the missing time. There was 5 sheep had been attacked. Can't say the word, but had been attacked, and there was no more said of it.
No.
Nothing about a dog, just that they had been attacked.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Really active area, isn't it? Is there any more questions we can get in there? Would last 2 or 3 minutes, Chris?
Yeah, I got one more. Stan, there's got to be energy or something that gets left over from terrible things that happen, like Culloden and Glencoe.
Yeah. Glencoe's another one. Down where the massacre happened, you can just cut the atmosphere. I mean, it's been a long time since I've been there. It was pre-COVID. We had a scooter run up to Fort William. We stopped at Glencoe, but there's just something majestic about it. It's and again, there's folk go missing. Well-seasoned hill walkers and mountaineers and climbers go missing.
Just vanish. We got this
Just
Jack
vanish.
Rowe.
Yeah.
One of my friends visited Culloden battlefield and I was knocked over by feelings of grief and anguish. She felt I had to get out of there. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of my mum's old neighbours, back in the 50s, they had a wee sort of kind of like VW camper van and had their kids in it. And they camped or parked up at Culloden. And she got up during the night and she said that she saw the Klansmen running across the field. Again, her husband, you're talking rubbish, blah, blah, blah. You had too much wine that night or whatever, or too much sherry. And about a fortnight later, in one of the local sort of kind of like the Sunday Post newspapers, somebody had put up their account, stop them over at Culloden and seen the same kind of thing,
Within the same time frame.
Within the same time frame, yeah.
So I wonder why that is. I wish we'd got a bit more time, but we haven't.
Yeah. I know.
but why is that though? Do you think that there's certain periods, and is it atmospherics? Is it some kind of thin area and time? Because it's strange that they get seen in a cluster, isn't it?
They get seen in a cluster. I think they get seen at a certain time of the year. It's like that guy who was working in the builder that was digging about in the down south. I think it was London or something, and he saw like these Roman centurions just walking through.
Yeah.
And he said they were nothing like what you saw in Ben-Hur or anything like that. They were all ragged and looking as though that they could do a good feed, and they looked demoralized.
Not like we think of them as looking like Adonis, like, and the
us picks up here probably sent them packing.
Yeah. All good.
Mike did a several Welshman saying, Stan, do you think that the Loch Ness Monster is real?
There's definitely something, isn't there? There has to be something. I mean, there's that much folk and that much stuff picked up on sonar, but who knows? I ken a lot of folk, have to, you go up there and you go to the shops and it's Nessie teddy bears, Nessie this, Nessie fridge magnets, but I think that there is a serious side to it, that there is something in that loch. It's so deep. And it's so murky with the peat and everything. Who knows? But they've picked stuff up on sonar. That they can't explain.
Yeah,
I mean, you know what? The land sightings fascinating, though, aren't they? There's
running across the road. Yeah.
I mean, that's bizarre, really.
Yeah.
But strangely enough, there's some of the more credible reports, I believe, from what I hear from Andy McGrath were telling me about that.
Yeah.
Crazy. It's a place I've never been.
Nessie's not the only one. I mean, you've got I think it's Loch Morlich. I think there's one there as well. Jo's, she's a big fan of the Nessie kind of thing. She loves that kind of sort of the stories and the sightings in Nessie. But as I said, Inverness is like 110 miles away from where we are. But we're hoping to get back up soon and get a scout around there and go out there at night and the day, just see what happens. Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, Paul and I, we're heading to Ben McDowell with Chris, aren't we, Paul?
Okay. We are doing, yeah. I don't know whether you'll be coming as well, Stan, will you? But we're going to head up there.
Has it got an escalator?
I'll be puffing and blowing a bit, but we're definitely going. And
it sounds good, eh? Yeah.
Absolutely. And hopefully we'll get to see you when you come down to Bridlington, Stan.
Definitely, yeah. When we have spoke about even just coming down sometime just for a long weekend and maybe going up Bempton and Deeside and give me a shout when we're doing,
Well, we were up there last night. It was pretty uneventful. But I were in Deeside today, me and the Bobster. Yeah. He just put me in my place. I'm very safe with him, There's not going to happen with him.
Nothing's going to happen, no.
Do you know, Stan, I don't know what Chris thinks, but breath of fresh air, we haven't had to do anything. You've just...
Yeah. It's been great.
Absolutely great. No, but you get people on who are doing serious research, and they're all good. We thank everybody that comes on, but sometimes it's a struggle to get the conversation flowing. You've just flown. Thank you.
I think as well, some of the stuff for me, it's too scientific. I mean, Jo's doing a course on parapsychology and all that kind of stuff, which she's saying I've got to try and disprove it. But to me, sometimes science can get in the way. I mean, I know you've got to prove stuff and that, but I love just chatting with folk and getting their grey matter going and just imagine what, I mean, I've had arguments with religious folk that have said to me, oh, your lot are just trying to, put their church or whatever, wipe it. I'm like, no, we're not. It's you've got to respect other folks' beliefs.
Absolutely.
If I've seen something, I've had experiences. I'm not going to turn around to somebody and say, "Nah, you're talking crap. You never saw that at all. You're bonkers." There's no way I'm going to say that to somebody. I've got to respect what they say they've seen because I've seen stuff. I think a lot of folk are scared that
Absolutely.
if I see this, if I've seen something like a ghost or I've seen a werewolf, what else is true? Are all the horror films I've watched, are they true? That they're totally terrified with it and they just didn't want to speak about it.
Yeah,
You know?
Stan, just before we go, where can people find you on Facebook? You got your Facebook group?
Yep, I've got it's a Phenomenon Aberdeen and Shire.
Right, Phenomena Aberdeen and Shire.
Phenomenon Aberdeen and Shire. Yeah.
Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire. Right, cool.
And would you come back?
I would come back, yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, definitely. I've really, in fact, next time we'll get Jo on with us as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
She's got lots of, she's got stuff that happened to her as a kid when they were teenagers at one of the old kind of graveyards here in Torry, the fishing area in Aberdeen, which really I mean, the building I'm in just now, down below in the basement was where one of the old free churches of Torry, but with the fishermen, the really superstitious guys, all used to have their, and the door in here, there's a cupboard door that opens on its own accord.
Right. Excellent. And I just see Lee's just said, don't forget Thursday, guys. We've got the Truth Proof live stream. Thank you, Lee.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bow out shortly because I know I've got to go somewhere. And from myself, thank you, Stan. Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah,
Lorraine.
thanks, Stan. Really enjoyed it.
I didn't think I'd lasted 2 hours, but here we go.
Thank you. It's easy when you get going. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Lorraine, thanks for moderating, and we shall see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Okay.
You're welcome.
Bye,
You're welcome.
welcome.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.